So hello everyone, my name is David, and I have a recruitment business. I'm based in Brighton or just outside Brighton. And when I started my business, I did a qualification in career counselling, and I didn't do the qualification, the course, to become a career counsellor. I just wanted to have more meaningful conversations with my clients. So whether that's a business or a person, have deeper, more meaningful conversations about careers. But this talk comes out of, I think, three things. I think firstly, my experience is looking for jobs, and being unemployed and employed, and my experience as a job seeker. Secondly, it comes out of my experience in human resources and recruitment. So my career has mainly been in human resources, um, and recruitment. And then lastly, it comes out of that career counselling qualification. And I use the tools that I learned during that career counselling in my work all the time on a daily basis. And so this session will kind of, it's using those three things. So I'd like to kind of start off by telling, sharing you a story that once upon a time, yeah, I was looking for work, and more often, more than once, I've been out of work. I always found it difficult looking for a job while I had one. I didn't have the time. It's so time consuming looking for work that I felt kind of dirty almost looking for a job while I had one. So I always found it easier being fully invested and looking for work when I didn't have one, which, is not easy on the money side and everything like that. But that was just kind of my approach. And I remember what it's like to look for work, and not hear back, to apply for jobs and never even get a response. To see a dream job on a job board, or see a job advertised somewhere and think I can do that. In fact, I've got the qualification, more than I've got the qualifications. I'm more than qualified. I'm overqualified for this job. Apply and never even hear back. Or even, kind of even worse, you do hear back, but it says, "Hi Abhishek," or "Hi David," or "Hi Katerina. Thank you for your interest. Unfortunately, you've been unsuccessful on this occasion. Good luck with your job search." Some sort of generic response. So even if you never hear anything, sometimes you hear something and it's just a piece of AI. It's a machine saying thank you, but no, nothing personal, nothing useful. Sometimes I remember looking for a job and interviewing and spending my time, my money getting there, going to this place, getting on a bus or getting on a train and going to a company, sitting down, meeting them, and then you hear back, and you don't even get any feedback why you haven't been successful. Nothing constructive, useful, truthful even. And that's the frustrating part when you might hear back from a company that says, Katerina, Abhishek, David, you haven't been successful, and you're not even getting any useful, real feedback that you can help you get your, that dream job. I remember looking at my CV, editing my CV and feeling like this document didn't say anything really about my life, doesn't say anything true about who I was, and my job flows and why I left that job and moved to another job and how awful that experience was and what was happening in my life at that point. I'm always aware when people fill out grades in their educational achievements, and I'm looking at it as an employer. And sometimes those grades don't represent who that person is. Maybe something was going on in their life at that time. They lost loved ones, or you were sick and you were taking your A levels, or whatever. I just felt always that this CV didn't reflect me. And looking at it and editing it so much that it was just becoming nonsense. And I'm English. My first time, my mother language is English. And even I'm looking at this document thinking, my God, it doesn't even read very well. It's a load of gibberish. And I remember I have a funny memory when I was thinking back on this, preparing for this presentation today. I remember working on my CV once to send it to a bank, an Australian bank for a job. And my family are my kids are the most important thing to me, absolutely. And I said in my summary, I wanted to put something about myself, and I wanted to say, I love traveling with my wife and our young children. But I'd worked on this CV so much and it just was nonsense. And eventually I wrote, I like traveling with my young wife and my children, which is just ridiculous. I wonder what that company would have thought when they saw that. And I remember also once I landed my dream job. Oh my goodness. I was so happy, and it was a great environment. It was unlike any other environment I'd ever worked in. It was entrepreneurial. It was really international. And I never worked in an international environment like this before. Everyone was using their own language to build relationships in their own countries. And I loved it. And then something happened. And I want to introduce Tony to you, because this was a job where I was managing a large team. It was very international. Like I said, it was fun, and we were traveling. And oh my goodness, I was successful. I was earning good money. And then there was this empty seat, this job that the company needed to recruit, that was overseeing the whole European office. And they recruited someone who went to Cambridge University and worked at a top company. And our CEO went to Cambridge as well. So he's got to be good. He went to one of the best universities in the world. And it was terrible. He was a terrible appointment for the office because he didn't really understand what we were doing. And really what everyone was doing was giving blood, sweat, and tears, working extra hours sometimes to get the job done. And what was amazing about this guy, Tony, was that the whole ambience in the office changed. The way we communicated changed. The customer experience, which is ultimately what business is about, is providing a customer service, whether it's an accountancy company, whether it's a cleaning company, whether it's a recruitment business. It's all about the service we're offering. And the most amazing thing happened with this guy who was recruited is the quality of the service that we were offering. It became so much worse. And so for me, that brought me back into the world of really HR, and wanted to start my own business, because for me, I saw the connection between good recruitment, good people development, good people practices, HR practices, and profit. And I suppose what I wanted to highlight by just kind of saying this introduction here is that when you're looking for a job, it's really flipping hard. And often you're leaving a job because you weren't a fit at that point, rightly or wrongly, fairly or unfairly. You were rejected. You're not feeling in the most empowered state. And there's a success cycle here. There's a model on a success cycle. And the reality is, if you're looking for a job, you're desperately wanting a job, you've got bills to pay for, you've got skills, you've got ambition, and you're not loved in your company, you're not being appreciated, you're not being developed, you're out of work, and you're getting rejections, and you're not even getting any useful feedback. It's flipping tough. The reality is, you're not in the success cycle of your most heroic self. My children are having an argument in the background now, so I'm sorry, but that's the reality. But most people are feeling disillusioned. You're feeling not your most kind of powerful. It's a difficult time. And that's a difficult time to be presenting your best self to a company. So I want to just take this moment, take a step back, and I would love it if you all have a pen and paper to hand to think of a time in your life when you were at your very best. And I'm asking you now, you might automatically start thinking about something in your personal life or something in your professional life where you were thriving, You were in the zone. You were the best version of yourself. You were flying. You felt fantastic. You at your very best. I want you to list a couple of these examples out. Whatever comes to mind, it doesn't matter. What's the first couple of things? Sometimes I've worked with people who have said, when I was doing puzzles when I was young, when I was doing my qualifications, when I had children, and I was doing my part-time studies and with my kids. I went through this slide with Kateba last week, and he was thinking about a time when he had multiple businesses, and it was in travel and tourism, and it was starting to work. It was starting to really click for him. He was providing a valuable service. And what's a really powerful thing to do is if you could take a moment to really bring that to life in your mind or with your partner afterwards. If you can talk this through with someone, and they don't need to speak, the person you're talking to, but just give yourself a couple of minutes to just waffle, to rabbit on, maybe even record yourself on your phone. And the reason why is because you might start noticing as you're talking, you don't think it's important. But as you're talking about the time you were doing puzzles when you were young, you're starting to build up a picture of you at your very best. And you'll notice your voice might change because you're really passionate about what you're doing. You're not just interviewing and talking about skills, but you're explaining something that was happening in your life. What were you doing? What was happening? Were you working by yourself? Were you working in a team? How did you feel? And if you can do that a couple of times, really deep dive, maybe you can pick apart what skills you were using. And the difference between strengths and skills is something like, I could be working on an IT project at this company. And I was using these technical skills in that project. But strength is something different. It's unique to you that you're bringing to the table. So skills could be, I was working on a hardware project with these software development tools, but the strengths I was bringing was this kind of sense of urgency, living in the moment. I was working on an international project and I was able to use my language skills, but also just tap into working with people from different cultures. My love of working with people, communication, international. And the last thing I think is really interesting is to look at the conditions that allowed you to thrive. And commonly, often I hear people, it's this feeling of trust. I trusted the people around me. I loved them. Kateba referenced things like family. And actually, that it's interesting that one instinctively you could say things like, oh, well, I was with my family. But brought out of that context, it wasn't really family. It's the idea of working in a team, feeling part of a tribe, a squad, trusting the people you're with. I wonder if someone would want to share something that's happened in their life, a time when they would be at their best. Does anyone feel comfortable to maybe share an example, personal or professional, where they've felt at their very best? No, well, that's okay. It's fine. But I think these important elements, the skills and the strengths and the conditions that enable you to be at your best and that you showcase, kind of going back a slide where we feel really unempowered, really unimportant, rejected by a company, we're looking for work and we're getting knockbacks. But this essence of what we're bringing to the table, and stop feeling like it's just a generic thing, but actually identifying what is completely unique about you might give you an extra spring in your step when you're interviewing. It might help you make better career-related decisions when you're starting in a company and a manager's not maybe treating you so well. It's to kind of give you the identity to say, you know, listen, Olena, hi, Kateba, Abhishek, David, I want you to know that I'm at my best. The conditions that help me to be at my best is when I know where we're going as a company, as a business. And I've lost sight of where we're going, or I don't feel I can trust you or be open in my communication with you. And I know I'm at my best when I have an open relationship with my manager with good communication. That's quite a powerful way of bringing, you know, a situation where you might have lost control or people around you are cutting corners back into where you can be at your best, so that you don't even having to be looking for a job, or allow you to put the best version of yourself forwards to a company. So I would encourage you to do that exercise. And I think that's your personal experience, but what's at risk for a company? And oh my goodness, it's a challenge. So I have a business now, and we help smaller sized professional services companies with their hiring challenges. And these are companies that are small, sometimes 50 people. They might be very profitable companies. They might be stable and secure, but oh my goodness, there's a risk with employing people. And I will ask you to think of, on this left-hand side here, this yellow, the best person you've ever worked with. Maybe you can just jot some words down, even one word. I'd love it if there's a chat. I don't think there is a chat section on this, but think of a couple of words of, I don't, you know, maybe I don't need to know their name, but just how did they make you feel? What was so good about that person? What impact did they have on the business, on your life, on your free time, on your weekend? Compared with this other figure on the right, this black figure, the worst person you've ever worked with. How did they make you feel?
We have someone who said on the chat they were empathetic.
They
You
were
can.
empathetic. They had empathy, yeah.
Mhm.
I'm so pleased there is a chat. What about anybody else want to just say a word? Doesn't matter. Anything about the best person you've ever worked with, how they made you feel, or what skills did they have? And to contrast that, the worst person you've ever worked with, the way I described Tony earlier, the impact that that person had on the office was incredible. We went from a highly profitable team. We were selling something in a very kind of mature, competitive market, and we were outstanding. To it was a horrible atmosphere. Everyone was doing things very on a basic level. We weren't having fun. We weren't expressing ourselves. We weren't excelling. We went from a high-performing office to a low-performing office.
We have someone who said treated with respect.
Yeah.
They were brilliant communicators and very supportive as well, very talkative, and
Talkative. Yeah.
yeah, and good communication skills and good listener. Great. You can see the chat.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
actually. Let me
Yeah.
try and bring that over here, actually. That might be quite good. So those are some nice positive ones. But what about when it hasn't been positive? The worst manager you've ever worked with, deeply empathetic, listening, never interrupting. Interrupting. Seeing the very depth of a problem beyond my own understanding and able to communicate it clearly. I mean, that's an amazing skill of a manager. And I saw something on Steve Jobs the other day where someone was saying just that their ability to see the truth was outstanding. Now, these are things. I mean, empathy, we would like that in all our kind of managers and or colleagues. but seeing the depth of a problem, that's an outstanding skill. Clearly, that's a high performer. That's maybe asking too much of the average person. But what about listening and never interrupting? I think the reality we're painting here is there's somewhere between this space, the dark and the good, is something really exciting for my business because I work in HR and it's that space here that I just love. The difference between getting it wrong and getting it right. Getting it right is hiring the people that are finding the next markets, the next innovations, versus getting it wrong and the whole nature of a business changes to the point of the service that they're offering customer is so much more basic, inferior. And there's a cost, there's an estimated cost. And I wonder what you think it is. I'll pop it in the chat of how many times the salary, the cost, the true cost of turnover is. So if you're earning £25,000 or you're earning £100,000, the cost, if you get it wrong, the cost of turnover, of cost of replacing you. I wonder if anybody could guess. Because it's estimated at 4 times your basic salary. So next time you're thinking, oh God, why aren't I hearing back from a company? That stat is a scary stat for me. I have my own small business. The cost of hiring someone at a basic salary of £25,000, giving them key accounts where they could earn a bonus, and knowing that if they don't work out, how much time I've invested, because there's a hard cost. There's things like a recruitment fee, setting you up with that laptop, phone, but the invisible costs, the things you were talking there about, kind of, positivity, training. There's an invisible cost to do with hiring, which is so scary, and is estimated at 4 times. And this slide, I just wanted to reference this, is a kind of a predictor on the best way to recruit people. So next time you apply to a company and you go for some crazy interview or whatever, there is no perfect prediction for a company. There's no way to completely reduce your risk and say, by doing this, we know whether this person will be right for our business. The best way statistically is a combination of an ability test, so it's like a technical test, and a structured interview. The least effective way is to sit down and meet and have a chat with you and see whether I like you, because it opens the company up to bias. It opens us up to just hiring people that we like rather than the best people for the job. And I want to just say here, there's a couple of things which are a challenge here, relevant to anyone here that's looking for a job, is that firstly, when we advertise for a business, we've got various different channels we can look at. We might advertise on CV Library, but it's different to Indeed, which is different to LinkedIn. So if you in your job search, I would encourage you to set up job alerts for the kind of things that you want on each of these channels, being very, very specific. Because Indeed might scrape job boards to find out, what jobs are out there and encourage people to visit Indeed. But they might not. LinkedIn doesn't. It's working on a different site, for example. So really, I know I was visiting a charity today that advertised just on Facebook, free advertising. So my point is, you've got to be a kind of not aggressive, but assertive in looking at these different channels to try and keep an eye on the best jobs if you want to look for a job. The second part is, don't expect a company to be nervous when they meet you. I used to work for a charity. It was called St Mungo's. They work with long-term homelessness, and I did a lot of work in prisons, and they work with the long-term unemployed. And I remember a manager saying to me, David, I feel more nervous interviewing than being an interviewee. I feel more nervous being a manager, interviewing someone for a job, than I am when I'm interviewing for a job. It's a bit of a weird environment. It doesn't feel completely natural to me, is what she said. And that really stood out to me. It kind of comes back to my first slide, or that slide around strength and skills. You want to be making it simple for the people to understand, who are you? What are you about? Where are you at your best? The last thing I would say on this being an employer is that I'm often advertising jobs, and I'm here, I get applicants from people outside of the UK that might have absolutely relevant experience. An accountant in India is using the same sorts of problem-solving skills as an accountant here in the UK. But the size of that firm is not significant. They don't have the tools, the resources to deal with that turnover, and they don't have the tools and the resources to spend, a significant amount of time on training. So although on the face of it, you would only need a basic kind of element of training, use on the technology, whatever systems they're using. In fact, because of the nature of their business, the sectors they run in, the culture of their clients, how many clients you work with, when you scratch beneath the surface, it can be quite different. And if it's not different, then it's your job to present that to an employer, to say, this is the kind of things that I was working in, this is the nature of that company, this was the unique challenges of this business. Two companies that work in construction or financial services, they could be so similar because of their brands, HSBC and Royal Bank of Scotland, Industrial Company One, Construction Company Two. But actually, because of their culture, one being a family-run business, another one being owned by a company, they were completely different. They have different size of teams. I feel the best way to get a response from a recruiter or from a company is to personally reach out to them rather than just apply with your CV. Is try and find that company, go to their website, send them an email, anything to elicit some response, some engagement in meeting you, to get yourself in front of them, to find out about the job. And I often respond to people because I remember what it's like and how difficult it is to be looking for a job. I respond to them or just have a quick call, quick 15 minutes to explain what we're looking for. And then they don't go away disgruntled and thinking, oh, this is so unfair. I'm not getting interviewed. I'm like, well, look at this job. This is why we were looking for experience in the legal sector or in an international experience or these language skills. Rather than just apply, scratch beneath the surface. I'm just going to look at the chat because I can see that there's a couple of words here. I sometimes even contacting their senior recruiters, but still no positive results. Yeah. Even though I have experience of 5 years. Hello, you mentioned a very good point. My experience was overseas, and that's one of the reasons I'm not considered for roles. God, it's frustrating. It's so frustrating when you know you can do a job and you see a job advert and you know you can do it and you're not hearing back. That's kind of going back to the start of how difficult that situation is. You're contacting senior recruiters and you're still not hearing back. So my point here is that a really personable outreach approach to really understand the nature of that job, that's what it requires, not applying to 100 jobs. And I think the other thing is what we were talking about was, you at your very best. That's that point around self-awareness. But what about what you want? Which I remember working with a company, a guy who they buy and sell luxury restaurants. That's their job. So they recruit people who are passionate about restaurants and food, love food. Secondly, are passionate about property. Okay, and he said to me, this managing director, and he's like, "Oh, David, I need to know what my team want." And isn't that a lovely, simple question? Which is, what do you want? And the reality is, most people in this world, say, "I just want bloody, I want to earn lots of money kind of thing. And then it's such a cliche that people with lots of money are not necessarily happier. And I know that some of you might desperately want a job. And some of you may desperately just want to develop your skills and look at, be feeling like you're giving back because you at your best, you want to be proud of yourself or you want to be helping people. That's what our core purpose. But continue to nail it down, really knuckle down what you want, just like knuckling down on what you're offering, your unique skills. Continue to refine what it is you want. So number 5, training and career progression. This is these 5 points I elevated years ago from an instruction for us as a business about what job seekers want. They want these 5 things. But now I don't ever work with anyone in terms of qualifying a job for an employer or with a candidate without knowing these 5 things. Because I think if even just one of these is wrong, it can affect the overall well-being of that person and ultimately their success in the job. And when I say success in a job, I know what it's like where you just want to get the flipping job and get paid and get your foot in the door. But ultimately, I also know how unhappy and miserable life can be when we're in the wrong environment that doesn't provide the conditions for us to be at our best. And they're never going to provide the conditions for you to be at your best because the culture of that business is completely different. So what are these 5 things that I would encourage you to know and continue to work on when you're employed, because they can change? First one, training and career progression. Where are you going? Often we can be flexible on things like a commute or working hours or the salary, if it can give us that stepping stone to where we want to get to. And so if we're being really hard and fast about a job in IT and we're saying I should be earning X, or, ultimately it doesn't matter that much to you. What matters to you is where that role is going to go and what development opportunity is there for you in the long term, because you're thinking long term. What training is on offer? Maybe you want to add to your qualification set. The next one, the day-to-day job. I've had a job which was perfect in all of the 5 areas, except when they sold it to me, it was with an established business, a Swiss multi-billion-pound organization. But the nature of the job was very manual. And I'm sure you can tell, I love people, I love inspiring and motivating and being strategic, not sitting behind a computer. And this job was very administrative and operational, which is great for people that are that, but that is not what I wanted. They didn't sell it to me, but also I didn't take my own personal responsibility. If it was clearer to me, I might have actually not taken that job, and that would have saved me a lot of time. It would have saved them a lot of money in recruiting me, training me, announcing to the business they'd recruited me, and then me being not successful and having to replace me. But the day-to-day job, what are you doing? Does that satisfy you? Does it interest you? Is it important to you? Sometimes it's not. Number 3 and number 5 can be the most important for a company, because if they hire you and you are a cultural fit, and or they're offering you a long-term opportunity which matches your goal, you're more likely to work harder, you're more likely to work overtime and not kind of ask for more money, because you're more likely to deliver, I think, a better customer service, a better experience for your colleagues, because you really care. But culture and reputation is an interesting one. I've worked with people that, because of their religious beliefs, don't want to work for a betting company, won't work for an alcohol company, won't work for a weapons provider. But it fits into the kind of culture of the business. I've worked for a business where it was very traditional. And they had a problem with a parent-child culture. Well, guess what? It was so real. It was like being in school, which was not the kind of environment where I'd be at my best. I like entrepreneurial companies, and that's allowed me to thrive. Convenience. Now, I would say number 1 and number 2 are really important. Maybe everyone in the pandemic, and obviously we've had some horrendous wars and changes recently. We're all aware there's more to life than money, but my God, we've got to pay the bills, and energy is expensive, mortgage, all of these things are scary, rent. I mean, I personally, coming back to my passion, my family, is my opportunity to be there for my kids, to be there for a sports day is like a non-negotiable. It's the most important thing to me. So convenience is quite a broad word, but it means things like your work-life balance, your opportunity to meet your caring commitments outside of work, be able to marry, work with your commitments as a parent, or whatever, work-life balance. And I work in the financial services space, so often I'm dealing with people like, David, I'm not getting a weekend. Why? Just because I'm an accountant and I like working with numbers and helping people through numbers, does it mean that I don't have a weekend and my health is suffering? So understanding like how many hours you're willing to work, how many hours you're not willing to work, what commute you're looking to do, what your salary benefits are. And I would encourage everyone here to continue to nail down what is really important. What's worse from a recruiter point of view or from a hiring point of view is when you get people that waffle on one of these or say stuff it's not actually bloody important. What you want is X. Make it really simple to a small business and they will employ you. I'm at my best when X, Y, Z, and what I want is X, Y, Z. I'm just going to visit the chat because, okay, so you're going to master's level. Amazing. You're getting, education experience, and hopefully that organization can help you with career support, Mohammed. It's crazy. Things like you're mentioning construction. The reality is financial services, tech, medicine, these are areas where they are incredibly short of key skills, and yet still companies have empty seats and people are looking for work. Isn't that a challenging situation? But coming back to my point here, is instead of thinking very generically, nail down what it is you're looking for, which location, what are you offering, what do you want? So my 5 practical tips to conclude is, firstly, success cycle. You're not going to be feeling the most heroic version of yourself. Stay positive. It's not an easy situation to be in. It's not plain sailing. Keep going. And keep a sense of identity of you and where you're very best. So when you do sit in front of someone, that's all that's important. You at your very best, what skills do you have? And what are the conditions that allow you to be at your very best? 3, I think an acceptance is it's difficult employing, in being an employer, managing when you're not a skilled manager. I'm sure we've all been there. It's risky and it's tough. I would encourage you to take a hyper personalized approach, just like you would expect as an employee. Instead of being treated as a number, treat that employer with a personable approach as well. Know what sector they're in. If you're applying to be an accountant or in construction, what do they specialize in? How can you help them? That will help you stand out and increase the chances of your conversion from applying to getting an interview. Number 4, self-awareness, what you want. Take responsibility, continuing to take responsibility for who you are and presenting your needs and wants as that evolves, even in a company. And then the last one I've put here is up to you, really. I put it as X factor, but I'm just going to leave it blank, really. What are you going to do to help you in your job search? And you're going to be your special X factor. I have my values. So when I've identified where I'm at my best, I've also identified the kind of things that are so important to me. My 3 values: openness. I have to be open. I like to be open. I like to welcome new ideas and be creative. Positivity. If I look at my life, I've seen so many times where I've been unhappy at work because I haven't been with really very positive people around me. It's so important to me. Positivity, looking forwards. And the last one for me is character, uniqueness, individuality. I love it. I love weird people and weird things and individuality. And this, for example, is art that I brought from my office that's it's autistic. It's done by someone with autism. And they just, it's a painting of a fish with like spots or chicken pox. I just love that creative way of looking at the world. And anyway, the point is individuality, style, character, personality. That's really important to me. I hold those values dear to help me deal with career-related issues and make better career-related decisions. A motto, a mantra. You know, for me, again, a motto I have is I remember a Tupac song, and it says, "You've got to keep your head up, even when the road is hard. Never give up." You might think of someone that you love, a loved one that can inspire you as you continue to go on this journey, and that's the reality. Is all bad things come to an end, all good things come to an end. There will be a time that passes. So have someone, you know, you can consider that keep going on this job search, because you have to stay positive, keep being a personal and applying for your jobs, and keep going. So thank you very much. And I hope that was in some way helpful for you.